Beautiful day. You just let me know when you're ready. Yeah, we can go. This is on? Just check this one. Hare Krishna. Good? Yeah? Okay, everyone. Om Ajnanatimarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Okay, we recommence. We went from a lovely but very modern temple, very new. That temple has been there maybe a few decades or so. This temple is very, very ancient. You may have noticed if you're reading some of the writings as you came into the temple, it's talking about how this temple is mentioned in the ancient texts like the Puranas. So the Puranas are many thousands of years old themselves, and they're talking about events that took place thousands and thousands and thousands and tens of thousands and even hundreds of thousands of years before that. So this particular form of Vishnu has been worshipped here on this spot for we don't know how long. I mean, a vast amount of time that's very difficult to even wrap our heads around. And even it would be considered kind of modern era that like the Pandavas came here and worshipped this deity, which was 5,000 years ago. And about 1,200 years ago, the temple was re-established by Shankaracharya. So that was about 1,200 years ago. So this is a very ancient deity. He's called Hrishikesh Narayan. So the town of Rishikesh gets its name from this deity of Lord Vishnu. Very ancient. So we'll talk just a bit about, I think we should talk about Vishnu. But let me just finish up what I was sharing earlier, and I wanted to finish completing reading this for you all. But we had gotten to a point where we're talking about something called Bhuta Shuddhi. Remember? And this was that before performing the ritual of the daily worship or the daily meditation, you could say. Because what is this worship? It's meditating on serving God. Right? It's a meditation. And the external form brings the element of vision in, which makes it easier to concentrate the mind. And the aromas from the flowers and the oils, they also help bring the mind, right? What you touch, sometimes you're touching the form of the deity, right? That helps focus the mind. So it's involving all the senses and drawing them into one powerful yogic focus on the form of God, which is in one sense easier than just the name, or what to speak of easier than to just meditate purely in the mind. If we have an external form, then the external serves the internal. And it makes it easier for us to bring the mind place it exactly where we want it. And some of us were discussing this on the way here, and cultivate the thoughts that I want my mind to engage with, rather than have my mind carry me all over the place. Sometimes, have you ever had this experience where you're scrolling on something like Instagram or something like that, and then you begin to realize everything I'm seeing here is silly and useless and just like, it's like junk food. There's nothing healthy here. It doesn't, and after a while, junk food, it's kind of, it has some nice taste in the beginning, but then as you continue, you realize this isn't nice at all. So then we realize this is taking my thoughts in places where the value of my mind isn't being honored. And it's just wasted time, and it makes me feel a little sick. Have you had that feeling before? Yeah. That feeling of sick? That's a good thing. When you feel that feeling of sickness, we have an alternative. If we had no alternative, then it would be quite depressing. But we have an alternative. We can choose to bring our mind and place it exactly where we want it. And we're given such a rich source of content in these sacred texts, in these sacred mantras, in these sacred forms, in these sacred rituals, and so on. I can choose the thoughts that I want to cultivate in my mind. And through by practicing it, I can learn to have these elevated thoughts in my mind all the time. Right? Krishna tells Arjuna, even on the battlefield, right? There's a verse in Bhagavad Gita where it says this famous idea, you've probably all heard of this idea, that whatever you're meditating on at the time that you die, that determines where you go. You've heard this before? Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam Jajayante Kalevaram, Tam Tam Evadikantaya. He's saying, Arjuna, wherever you bring your mind at the point of death, that's where you go. And he says, and then he says, Tasmat. Therefore, Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu. What does Kala mean? Anyone know? Kala? Time. And Sarva means all. Tasmat. Therefore, Sarveshu Kaleshu. All of the time. Mam Anusmara. Always be remembering me, always be thinking of me, always be meditating on me. Therefore, because when you die, what you think of is going to turn where you go. So therefore, all the time, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara. Always remember me, yudhyacha. Mam anusmara yudhyacha. And at the same time, fight. Right? He's saying that we can move through this world and do the worldly things that we need to do, and in the background and the foreground, there's always remembrance of Krishna, why I'm doing this, how I'm remembering him, how I'm serving him, how I'm his servant, how I'm dependent on him. This channel is always playing, if not in the foreground, at least in the background. And therefore we do these particular rituals. So we were talking about doing this Bhuta Shuddhi, that before we engage in the ritual, we want to step out of the external world and bring our mind totally into the moment. Even taking this identity, we all have certain identities that we're playing with right now. Male, female, right? Some American, some French, some Brazilian, some Mexican, etc., etc. That's not who we are. Someone may say to us, where are you from? Oh, I'm Mexican. But that's just, we're temporarily in a body that has a connection to that place. Temporarily in a body that has a particular gender. Temporarily in a body that is tall or short, etc. Certain species, etc. I temporarily play those roles. That's not necessarily a problem, as long as we know that's not me. Right? But how do we cultivate the real me, the eternal me? That's what we do through this, right? And what did we say? I'm not a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. I'm not Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa. I'm Gopi, Bharta, Kamala, Yor, Dasa, Dasa, I'm Dasa. What am I eternally? Who am I eternally? I'm the servant of Sri Krishna, the lover of the gopis. That's who I really am. And when I do this ritual, I drop off the temporary identity. I'll pick it back up and put it on like clothes. But for now, I take it off, I put it aside, and I exist in that eternal identity of mine, right? So let me read this again. Okay, that's where we left off. We spoke about how if one wants to cut the knot of false ego in the heart, they should quickly, then they can worship the form of Krishna, they get the blessings and direction of their guru, they cleanse themselves, they worship that form of Krishna that they find most dear, then they cleanse themselves. You wake up in the morning, you take a bath. You purify the body by pranayama and settle the mind. And then you do this Bhuta Shuddhi. In one way or another, you let your temporary identity go and you exist in your eternal identity. You mark one's body with the sacred symbols of devotion. And then you gather the ingredients that are to be offered. Flowers, food, and maybe fruits or so on. Oils, fragrant oils, etc. You gather the ingredients to be offered, including scented water, fragrant oils, flower garlands, incense, and oil lamps. Then, sitting before the form of the Lord, one should carefully fix him in their mind and heart. You have to feel it right here, right? And present the offerings with the appropriate mantras. With mind fully absorbed in love, one should meditate on oneself as the eternal servant of the Lord. Having concluded the worship, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to meditate. I'm the Lord's servant eternally. That's who I am. And maybe it's a 10-minute puja, or 20-minute seva, or maybe half an hour. For some people, it's much longer. Right? But for that time, I'm living in that world. I'm Krishna's servant eternally. This is who I am. Having concluded the worship, one should see and feel the presence of Krishna everywhere, in fire, in the sun, in water, and in the other elements, in the hearts of all others, and in one's own heart. In this way, the worshiper will very soon become free. Okay, these are the ancient, true, authentic teachings of what's happening in these temples. What's supposed to. We may come, and many people come, and they just ask God for something, right? Please give me this, please give me that. That can be done too, but we're not really understanding what's going on, what's possible, how we can gain the deepest, most powerful benefit from it. These are the instructions that are telling us how to do that. And then we walk out of here having felt God. That's describing how the person doing the worship is, all the acts. But the person, we walk into a temple and there's a priest who's trained in the ritual. But that priest is doing it on behalf of all of us as well. And so when we sit there, as the priest is offering an item, we're also feeling, please accept this from us, right? And in one sense, all of these offerings are saying, please accept me. I turned away from you. I want to turn back now. I want to reconnect. This lamp is like my heart, right? You've seen them offer the lamp? Maybe some of you going to the Ganga Puja in the night and they have the big lamps. They're going like this, right? So they in one sense, all the different elements are being offered. So in other words, everything that you've given us, we're giving you back. You've given us earth, water, fire, air, ether. We're giving it all back to you. But it's also like that lamp is, if in the old days, if you're going to go visit someone, you would have to walk a long distance sometimes. And that by the time you get there, it might be nighttime. And you're wondering, where's their home? And there's no street lights, right? So how do I find? So it may be that you stand there and you hold this fire, this lamp, so that people can see, this is where I want you to come. This is where I want you to come, and I want to welcome you into my home, right? And keep you here and serve you very nicely. Please come here. So in one sense, this lamp is saying, please come here into my heart. I want you to sit right here. And this idea is very important in what's happening in the temple, or what's happening in the puja, the seva that one does. The idea that altar, when you come into the temple, like, we'll come here, we'll see that it's very clean, spotless, pristine. And then the Lord is placed in that spot. Please stay here. Very firmly. This deity has been worshipped in this spot for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Right? I want you to come and stay in my heart and never leave. That means my heart needs to be very pure. Right? It means I need to give up lust, anger, greed, illusion, all aspects of cruelty that I have. The Lord, that's not a pristine, pure altar to reside in. If my mind is not purified, if my heart is not purified. So I want you to come in, and I want to purify the place where I want you to sit, and I want you to stay. And then my heart becomes the altar where you sit, and I worship you eternally there. There are beautiful songs like this that express how this is. So we should always try to understand it on that. When we wave that lamp, it can be saying, please come here, please come into my mind, please come into my heart. Or it can be, this is my heart, this lamp, this flame, and I'm offering it to you. Please accept it. My body, my mind, my words, my heart, they're yours now. I've taken them away from you. I want to give them back to you. Everything is your energy, including my own self. I offer myself back to you, and I reconnect. Just like a tree has so many leaves, right? But it has one root, and that root sustains them all. And if one of the leaves says, I wonder what it's like to be the root, it can break off, but it's not designed. Its eternal dharma is not to be a root, it's to be a leaf. As long as it stays connected, it stays alive and vibrant. The moment it disconnects, right, it begins to shrivel up, dry up. And so I've disconnected myself. Somehow or other, I've disconnected myself. I want to reconnect. And this is one way of reconnecting. Right? Is this chanting the mantra is another way, right? Doing seva is another way. So many ways are there. Our most important ways are hearing the sacred text, shravana, and kirtana, chanting the names of God. And then shortly after that comes shravana, comes archana. It's worshiping of the deities, a very powerful way. Are there any questions about what we discussed so far? I wanted to share that, and then I'll speak briefly about Vishnu and how we understand Vishnu. But are there any questions about what we discussed so far? Or thoughts? Has it been helpful at all? Okay. You feel you understand it a little bit more clearly, what's going on? Otherwise, what's going on in these temples can be a little strange. It can seem strange. If you really understand it, it becomes very beautiful. If you don't understand it, then it can feel odd. Okay. Shall we talk a little bit about Lord Vishnu? Is that okay? This is a temple to Vishnu. This Hrishikesh Narayana. Nara means like mankind. And Narayana means like the shelter of all mankind. The Lord Narayana. And this is the way that all of this is discussed in the Puranas, especially the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which is the culmination where everything is made most clear, because there's so many questions, so many gods and goddesses and so on. How do we put it all together? Vyasadeva, the great sage who compiled all the text, in order to clarify it all, he wrote the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the Bhagavad Purana. And there he explains, he lays it all out. And there he says, Krishnastu Bhagavan Svayam. He speaks about Vishnu. And then he speaks about all the different incarnations of Vishnu. You've all heard of the different incarnations, right? He comes as Matsya, as a fish. He comes as Kurma, as a turtle. He comes as Narasimha, half man, half lion. He comes in different, more human-like forms, Parashurama, Rama, etc. So he comes in so many different forms, and the list of all of them is given in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And then this verse is spoken that's meant to be very conclusive and give us the vision through which to understand it. And this says, Ete changsa kala pungsa Krishnas tu Bhagavan Svayam. That all of these different forms that we've been mentioning, these different incarnations, avatars that we've been talking about, they're either portions of the supreme absolute truth. But the original, Svayam Bhagavan, the original person from which it all comes from, Krishnastu Bhagavan Svayam, is Sri Krishna. That little sweet boy. That somehow all of this is coming from us. Now, what is Krishna interested in? What is his mind absorbed in? Can anyone say? Any thoughts? Ideas? Krishna, what does he do? What takes it? Is he interested in creating? Is he interested in destroying? Is he interested in judging? Sometimes when we think of God, we think of these kind of things, right? If Krishna, you're saying, huh?
Love, dance.
Yeah, it's actually it's said that all he's interested in is in exchanging adventures, you can say, wherein love is exchanged. He wants to taste love and give love in all different varieties. And the form of Krishna is the form that is called Akila Rasamrita Murti. Murti means form. And Akila Rasamrita, Rasa means the flavors, all the different flavors of love. Rasa Amrita means the nectarian flavors of love. Akila means it can accommodate all of them. Akila Rasamrita Murti means in this form, any way that you want to love him, he can accept it and reciprocate with it. You can love him like the servant loves the one that they serve. You can love him like a friend, and many different varieties of servants and many different varieties of friendship. There's different kinds of friendship. Sometimes a friend is a little older, it's a little bit different flavor, right? Sometimes a friend is a little bit younger, it's a little different flavor. One is looking out for the other, that's part of the friendship, right? Sometimes they're very much equal, that's another aspect of the flavor. Some things you can share with some friends, but you can't share with other friends. Right? So there's many types of friendship. And then there's also the love that a parent has for a child, right? They're dependent on me, right? Very special love. And then there's also the romantic love. And within romantic love, there's so many different varieties of love, right? Akila Rasamrita means that Sri Krishna is the one that can reciprocate with them all. And in whatever way the soul wants to love him, he can reciprocate with it. But somehow, if the soul has decided, I want to try something else. Like I'm like the leaf, but I wonder what it's like to be the root. I'm not God, I'm connected to God eternally, but I wonder what it's like to be the center of everything. The only way that we can experience that is within a state of illusion. And that's what this material realm is all about. It's like a virtual reality in which we all can enter and try to live as if we're independent of God, or even try to be that center of adoration ourselves. But there's laws in effect here. There's a law of karma, and there's a law of time, and there's the three gunas, and they make it, we can taste it to some degree, but it's also elusive. And when it starts to slip away, we feel the pain. And so yoga is meant to reconnect us and get us out of the illusion of the virtual reality and reconnect it. Okay? But if we do choose that I want the realm of illusion, then Krishna says, I can make that happen. But Krishna's not going to get too involved there. He's interested in his adventures of love in the spiritual realm. And he expands himself as Vishnu. Do you understand? This is real important, right? Krishna just wants to do what?
Adventures.
Yeah, what do we call that in Sanskrit? Anyone know? Shashi, you know? It's a word, huh? Prema is the divine love, but we call his the play that he does. Lila. Right? He's engaged in play. That's all he does. And it's not silly play. The deepest, most absolutely beautiful, sophisticated, simple yet sophisticated experiences happen in that state. There's nothing that can compare to that. And he stays engaged in that. And he's not going to leave that to create, to destroy, to maintain, to judge. All of this, we call it outsourcing, right? Outsource, like companies will do this. And he outsources, sometimes he takes the role himself as Vishnu, sometimes he empowers other beings like the Devas, and they run the world that we're living in. That makes sense? Right? He stays engaged in his play. And when he does come here, he takes his whole playground of Vrindavan and brings it in, and he just continues the play here. He doesn't do the business, right? But in order to maintain this realm, out of his love for us, he does it. And he takes the form of Vishnu. And he takes 3 forms of Vishnu. Are you ready to hear about this?
Yes.
We need full attention now. If I had like a dry erase board or a chalkboard here or something, it would be helpful. So you're going to have to use keep your attention focused. Ready? Imagine an unlimited sky with unlimited spiritual planets. That's the spiritual realm. You can't measure it. Right? And within that realm, there's like a dark bubble, a dark corner. And that's the material realm, the virtual reality that we're all existing in. We can't measure that. It's immeasurable itself. But Krishna enters into that in a form of Vishnu. And that form is called Mahavishnu. Maha means the big one or the great one. We can't estimate the size of that form, okay? Because from that form is lying in water. And from that form, from the pores of the skin of that form, unlimited universes come. This is what these ancient texts say. Now, that sounds really wild and really far out, but these are very, if you would analyze these texts, we can see how brilliant they are, how much information they share. One begins to develop faith that they're onto something. And any creation story that exists, Big Bang, there's a boom and then suddenly everything developed. Any creation story that we get is going to be very far out. And so this is the far out creation story that's given in the sacred text. That Vishnu lies down in that water, Mahavishnu. And then from him, from his breathing, one breath, they all come out. Unlimited universes on the exhale and on the inhale, they all come back into his body. Like this, right? Over an incredibly long period of time. That is one of his breaths. Comes back in. He's lying in this mystic slumber. But within each universe is like a bubble in that water. Okay? And that bubble fills up half with water and he lies down on the top of that water in his next Vishnu form. This Vishnu form is called Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Garbha means the navel. And from the navel of this Vishnu comes a lotus flower. And born on that flower, Lord Brahma. One being is given the knowledge to now create that universe, all the different species. From his mind, Brahma, he goes into deep, he wakes up and it's dark because there's no sun, right? And he's wondering, what am I doing here? He begins to climb down the stem of the lotus. He can't find anything, he comes back up. But he hears two syllables, tapa. Tapas, do austerity, sit, meditate. And then he begins to hear the voice of Vishnu, and who gives him all the instructions that he needs to create. And he can create the sun, create the moon, create the stars, create from his mind all the different sages, all the different species. And from this, creation develops. So now you have the big Mahavishnu. Unlimited universes come from him. In each of those universes, the second Vishnu comes, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Each one of those is the soul of the universe. Have you heard this idea before, that the universe is a living body? Yes? You've heard like that before? These sages understood it in great detail, that just like every living body must have a soul that spreads its consciousness through that body. So if this universe is the body, then the soul of the universe is Vishnu, right? And he spreads his awareness throughout the whole body like our awareness is spread throughout our body. Right? The word Vishnu, the name Vishnu, what does it mean? It means one who pervades. So that Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is lying on the water, navel. From the navel comes the lotus. Lord Brahma creates the universe, all the species, all the living beings. And then Vishnu, a third time, comes in the third level, and that is he enters the heart of every living being. That's called Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. He enters the heart of every living being, and he actually enters into every atom. Right? So now he's everywhere. He's, in one sense, he's in everything, right? That form of Kshirodakshaya Vishnu is in everything. And in another sense, everything is in him, because this universe is his body, and all the universe is going to his still bigger body, Mahavishnu. Does that make sense? I know it's very far out. Sometimes we hear these different things. God is inside everything and everything is inside God. This is how it's actually explained. So this Vishvatma, Vishva means the universe, Atma means the soul. He's the Vishvatma. He's the soul of the entire universe. That same soul enters into your own heart. There's not one living being that he's not inside. We said that every body is a temple, right? He exists in your own body and sits there, right? And you carry him with you. So although we may feel alone, we're actually never alone. that actually the soul of the entire universe is situated in my own body, and the yogis meditate on it. This is actually what the Ashtanga yogis would go up into these mountains to try to find. They would go off into a secluded place, sit very still, stay there for a very long time, create the right asana, right? Usually there would be a deer skin, and then on top of that they'd place the kusha grass, and then they would sit there and spend years meditating, controlling the senses, right? Asana would be done to help get all of the different channels in the body, all the different systems in the body, the digestive system, the circulatory system, the what do we call the lungs, the respiratory system, the endocrine system, the skeletal system, the muscular system. Through asana, you get all of these flowing and functioning very smoothly. And when they're all functioning very smoothly, the mind tends to become more clear and lucid, right? Then they would do the pranayama to help purify, through the breath, purify the body and settle the mind, right? Then they do the pratyahara, right? They're sitting up in these mountains. Now they're very purified. And then they close the eyes and withdraw the senses. Stop engaging the senses in the external world and start to look within, right? And once they've mastered that, then they go on to dharana, holding the mind fixed on one object. And when they master that, they can go into dhyana, a much deeper state of meditation on a particular object. And when they can hold that for longer periods of time, they can completely focus themselves entirely on the object of their meditation so strongly that only that object is in their awareness. So strong that even they lose the feeling that I am meditating on the object. There's only the object in their awareness. And that state is called samadhi. Right? The yogis traditionally, the object of their meditation would be Vishnu in their own heart. That would be their focus. And they would want to bring their awareness entirely onto Vishnu. And when they would have that awareness on Vishnu, they would fall in love. And then when they would come out of the samadhi, that Vishnu, all of their feelings of who I am and what I need to be happy and all of that illusion is like, let's say, kind of erased from the hard drive. Now they know who they are, they know who God is, they know the relationship, and they're feeling it entirely, and they're seeing that God everywhere, in every living being, in every atom. They would do that through Ashtanga Yoga. Arjuna hears about this in Bhagavad Gita and says, I don't think I can do it, it's too hard. He says, don't worry, there's other ways you can do it. And that's one reason why we come to a temple like this. Because we may have a very difficult time seeing God in our own heart. But we can come into a temple and see him right here. And it's not that this is just some idea that, okay, we can't do the real yoga, so we can do this. All the great Shankaracharya, right? He reestablished this temple and worship him. Prahlada, the great devotee mentioned in these ancient texts, he worshipped the deity here. All the great yogis and rishis, for thousands of years, when they would come to Hrishikesh, they would come to worship this deity. It's not some second level, consolation prize or something like that. It's the real thing. We can reconnect right here and see this Lord. Open up, bow down before him, open up our heart to him, open up our mind to him, and pray, let me feel you. Now I'm seeing you with my eyes. So I'm thinking of you. But then I go off and I forget you. I want my awareness to become full of you. I want you to please arise in my mind and in my heart so that I never feel alone. One of the reasons why the yogis would go off into the mountains and into the jungles and go alone is because sometimes it's only when you're alone that you turn within and find that I'm not alone, that there's somebody here with me all along in my heart. Otherwise, we become distracted by everything external, right? So we can pray like that. If that's our desire, you're here in my heart all the time, and I don't hear your voice, I don't think about you. You're standing right next to me. You're standing right within me. I don't want to be so dull anymore, so callous anymore. I want to feel you here all the time, and I want to see you in the heart of every living being. Please arise in me. Let me feel you. Let me see you everywhere. This is what yoga is really all about, right? This is what the yogis are really trying to see. If you read Bhagavad Purana, you read so many Puranas, you read Bhagavad Gita, you read that 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and then what does Krishna say? He says, I should really read this. You want to hear these verses? Let's read these verses of Bhagavad Gita. I should have them.
While Kaustubha Prabhu is finding the verses, I just wanted to check with you. How do you feel? You are still enthusiastic that we continue, like that, because we said that we are going to stop around 2:30, but that like that we prolong a little bit so that we can absorb. If somebody's like feeling tired or something, you are welcome to say. I'm just looking at your eyes.
I'm sorry, I have a habit of speaking too long. We'll read these verses and then we'll go in and take darshan. It'll just take me a moment. I got this just for moments like this, but it's the first time I'm really using it in this setting. I wanted to have all the books right here. Okay.
No pun used.
I'm sorry?
No pun used. Things are distracted.
Okay, so now we're going to read about 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita when the yogi achieves that stage of samadhi. And they've been meditating on God within their own heart. And that's been their entire focus. Ready? These are beautiful verses. These are really nice. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, they think there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This, indeed, is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should not abandon, without exception, one should abandon, without exception, all material desires born of mental speculation, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. From wherever the mind wanders, due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me, now Krishna says, because that yogi may have been potentially meditating on any object. Patanjali says any object to settle the mind. But when the Gita talks about what the Ashtanga yogi does, he says they meditate on me. That yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions to past deeds. All the karma is burnt. Thus the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. Now, listen to this. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me, right? He's in all beings and every being is in him. This is the Vishnus that we were talking about. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. And then one of the most beautiful verses of the Bhagavad Gita. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost to them, nor are they ever lost to me. Okay, this is the connection is made now. And I, I'm not the greatest scholar of all these. I read Bhagavad Gita and I read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and certain other texts. I'm not the great scholar of all the Vedas and the Puranas. There's so many texts. And there aren't all that many great translations of them. But from what I understand, you have all the Vedas and all the Upanishads and then the whole Mahabharata, and it finally comes to the middle 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, which speak in great depth about Bhakti. And this is where you're just almost there. This is text 30 of the 6th chapter. There's only 17 more verses, and then you're in the middle 6 chapters, which are all about Bhakti. But I think the mood of Bhakti is kind of bled over the border. And now we're hearing about Krishna's heart. Because if you read all the Vedas, it'll tell you you can worship the god Agni and achieve this, and you can worship this goddess and you'll be blessed in this way, and you'll get this and you can get that. But I don't think we ever hear it say, and then the god Agni never forgets you, right? In other words, it's never talking about how they're moved by your devotion. It's saying, I go to them for something and they give me something. I worship them, I get something. But here Krishna is saying that they get, through their meditation on me, they see me everywhere and never forget me. That's an incredibly powerful, moving feeling that I never for a moment am I forgetful of God. But he's not saying only that. Krishna's saying, I'm never lost to them. And then he says, but they are never lost to me. As much as they've fallen in love with me, I've fallen in love with them. This is bhakti. This is a conception of God that hasn't been fully articulated yet, right? That God falls in love with you. It's not that you just fall in love with God, but God falls in love with you, right? So this chapter of the Bhagavad Gita was saying the goal of Ashtanga Yoga is to achieve that, where you see God everywhere, where you can't forget God for a moment, and then you fall in love with God, and then God can't forget you for a moment and falls in love with you. That can be achieved through Ashtanga Yoga, that becomes bhakti when you've felt the presence of God. But what we were reading earlier in the Bhagavatam was saying, maybe, because Arjuna hears that and says, I can't do that. Right? It's too hard, that kind of meditation and full focus. As a yogi, sitting alone, up there on the mountain, keep withdrawing the mind every time it wanders. So then we're hearing, okay, there's other ways you can practice yoga. Krishna will tell Arjuna. And one of them is what we do here. If you have trouble seeing me in your heart, going into a state of samadhi, seeing me in your heart, you can go into the temple, which is basically just one big heart, right? And you enter right into it, and you could see him in front of you, right? And take him in through your eyes, right? And come here every day, right? Offer your prayers to me. Speak to me. You can speak to me in the temple, and then when you go home at night and you're about to go to bed, speak to me again in your heart, right? You can practice it here, and then you can carry it out of here and bring it everywhere. That's what we do here. So now we all have the opportunity to go into this heart, right? They actually even call it like that, you know? And this, I would imagine that this part of the temple is somewhat more modern, and that that part of the temple probably goes back many centuries. That may have been what was reestablished by Shankaracharya, you know, I'd imagine. But the deity here has been here going way, way, way back before that. We can enter in. We can bow down before the Lord. We can open up our heart. We can open up our eyes and see the Lord and be seen by the Lord. And we call this darshan. Right? And then we can open up our heart to that form of Vishnu, that everything is within and that is within everything. That form, we can look at that form and say, here you are in front of my eyes, to remind me that in the same form, you're always in my heart. Right? Please let me always feel that and never forget that. Right? If we go in there and we're distracted, then we can expect that we're going to be distracted when we come out. But if we go in there and we're very concentrated, very focused, and focused with devotion, then we can expect that we're going to cultivate that same awareness when we come out, like that. And may we always hold that. We don't know how many times in your life you'll come to this spot that all the great sages have come to. You have your opportunity now. And this is like we're discussing on our way here. There are temples, like there's a temple in South India, Tirupati, where Vishnu is worshipped there as well. It's the most popular religious holy place in the world, more visitors than the Vatican, right? Thousands and thousands of people every day. For thousands of years, people in India would walk many, many miles to have darshan of that Lord Vishnu there. And you have to wait in a very long line. And you just have a moment where you can see the Lord. And then they push you aside and the next person comes. Here, this deity is similarly ancient. And all the great sages have gone there. All the great sages have come here. But nobody comes here somehow. And so we can go in there and spend a little time. Maybe we'll all have the opportunity to come here many, many times again in our life. Or maybe this will be the last time. We don't know. But we have the opportunity to see Lord Vishnu right in front of our face. And open up. So take the opportunity. Walk into this temple understanding it's very sacred. Right? And then from according to your own faith, open up and connect. Traditionally, they would bow down, they offer prayers like this. And maybe we can even sing the song in there, do a little kirtan. We can see if they appreciate that. And see if you can more firmly, we say establish God in your own heart. It really means establish your own awareness that God is in your own heart. See if we can take that one big step deeper entering in here today. Okay? So now we can go in. Thank you all so much. You've been really, it was wonderful spending this time with you. We're really attentive and good-hearted group. So it's been my honor to be here with you, my pleasure to be here with you. You ready to go in? Okay. I think we'll go around this side and enter in so that we can enter right in from the front.
So we'll enter from the front side. And we will also have a few prayers, and then we're going to have a small kirtan inside. If you are not too hungry or not too tired, how many of you are very hungry? A little bit? There is one beautiful restaurant just here close by, so you can immediately go and eat if you're hungry. So just that you are peaceful. It's the most famous restaurant in Rajasthan. So you can go there and you can take this lassi, famous lassi on the way to quench your thirst also. But let's now, so that your mind is peaceful, let's now go in, take a little darshan, sing a little bit, and then we will go in 15-20 minutes, something like that. So, and this deity is self-manifested. It manifested itself many thousands of years ago.
No one carved this deity.
Nobody carved it. From one very special stone that can be only found in one very special place in India. It's very, very special deity. Like he said, nobody comes, not nobody, very few people. And this is so beautiful that you can take a long time to. I will say that when we come inside. Okay, please join us. We will go from that side.